Hi Tea Society, welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we are checking out IU's Shopper, and I'm always excited to get some more IU on the channel and to check out some more. I know it's been a long time coming for this one, but I do want to finish up this album so that I can listen to it whenever I want, even though Love Wins All still makes me cry. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I'm hoping that this one may be in a more fun vein. Maybe it might still make me question my existence, but at the very least it is going to be gorgeous vocals, and it's going to be a great song regardless. So I'm excited to get into the song. We're going to be checking out the lyric video first, and then we'll get to the music video, because these music videos have had so much going on that like I can't focus on the song and the story stuff going on at the same time. I don't have that brain power. All right, let's see what the queen has for us today. The blonde hair works for her. I mean, all of the hair colors work for her. Let's be so real right now, but like, ooh, okay. Very subdued production so far. Oh. I mean, Shopper, right? Like wanting more and all of that. I can see how that can kind of fit in with the title of the song and this idea of like not having enough. And I guess we'll kind of see how that develops throughout. But like that like light breathy vocal and then that stop before the production comes in, that feels so IU, and I love it. The synths. Ooh. Beautiful little cry in her voice there. Ooh, okay. One, like the vocals coming out there. I love the way that she went from like this breathier tone to, you know, getting great closure in her voice, especially for that line. Like one, it's building up the energy going into what I'm assuming is going to be like the drop in the chorus and all that, but also almost like this conviction to it, right? Like it isn't just on the like shallower side of like wanting things, right? Shopper kind of makes it sound like you're interested in necessarily like material things, but I feel like as this song is kind of developing, it's more about wanting things from a deeper part of who you are. And like it says, like no matter like who calls you a freak, like it's okay to want what you want and enjoy what you enjoy and not have to worry about other people's opinions and lining yourself up to other people's expectations, right? And I think that going into this line of like no need to explain, I want something else, and having this like strength and conviction in the way that she's presenting that line is a really great contrast. It builds up the energy really well, but it's also just like great storytelling through the musicality of in all of these other moments, like having this very like airy, almost lack of depth in the way that she's presenting her vocals, right? Like it's not digging into some of those richer tones. It's a very thin sound, and the way that she's putting all this air through it, that contrasts wonderfully with her, like when she's actually talking about something that matters to her, building up that momentum in her voice. But also these synths are so good. I love when IU goes into the realm of like this like synthy pop, like retro 80s vibe to her music. It's so good. Oh, that vocal slide down too. Oh, her voice. Ooh, okay, that cashier sound is great in this too. I also really like this contrast of, it's like put in the brackets in this video, but this like the kind of backing vocals and then I use like main track of almost like this back and forth of like her talking about these moments of wanting things that have like a little more depth to them, a little more substance to them, and then almost like this kind of choir voice coming through of multiple voices saying like kind of the more materialistic side of things. And I think that that is like really interesting, especially given how long IU's been in the industry and how long of a career that she's had and how young she started, and like the number of opinions and voices and people around her who want to say like what she should be and the kind of career that she should have, all the way to her like building up to this point of her releasing this album and the kind of success and coming to terms with like who she actually wants to be, that she's like, you know, grown a lot throughout that time. And I think it's really interesting to have this vibe of her wanting to have a deeper conversation, of wanting things that have more substance to them, even the idea of like time is short, so like take the things that matter to you, go after those things that actually mean something to you, because at a certain point you'll look around and time has flown by. And I think that, ooh, that's a scary thing, but like also very true of like, you always think that later is possible until you suddenly stop and look back and you realize how much time has passed. And there's so many voices kind of telling you which things that you should go after, what things that you should care about, or the opportunities that you should take. And I think that's really important to kind of focus in on what actually matters to you, especially with the like greed is free is a really interesting line. I think that you can kind of take those two ways of like almost like giving yourself to be greedy in a way, like to say, yes, I want this, because I think quite a few people think like, oh, I don't deserve to have this thing, like even though I want it, I don't deserve to have it. And a long process of allowing yourself to have permission to want something, to have it, and to think of yourself as someone deserving it. And then I could think it also be the other side of like people around her maybe dictating what success is, of going after those more materialistic things or numbers or really kind of surface level things that you could say are success, right? Whether that's like streaming numbers or awards or charts or whatever, that isn't necessarily what success is. I think those are really like easy markers for that, but it's not the same as actually looking at your career and being proud of it. So I just really interesting. Love the interesting like crashing and like pullback of the production too, especially with this like back and forth. It's almost like this like build up of this energy, and then it gets like kind of pulled away and you kind of have to fight back to get that momentum. So it's like this weird like uplifting and then almost this like needing to take a breath, or this like moment of like suspension in it that I find really interesting. God, I love her voice. Really interesting sample stuff. Her voice. Ooh, I love that, like, let me dare. Again, what I was saying before, I think a lot of people struggle with, you can call it imposter syndrome, you can call it anxiety, you can like pull apart lots of different layers of like why people feel this way. But I think a lot of people don't go after the things that they want or the things that they feel truly pulled towards because a part of them thinks that they don't deserve it. And I think that you have to let yourself be greedy sometimes. You have to give yourself permission to overstep in your eyes, right? To aim too high, to dare and challenge and go after it. And I was also thinking, one of the thoughts I had earlier is that we listened to Shh, which is also on this album. I don't really know how this, I want to say like Shush, I guess, if I'm going to actually say it, but I listened to that song as well, which felt more like this kind of like generational thing, right? We had like multiple generations of women vocalists in K-pop. And I think that it's really interesting to have this song within that same album of what does success mean and what should you be focused on, and take what you want, let yourself be greedy, let yourself dare. It's time to show. And like that can be like multiple different kind of interpretations of like showing your true self, embodying your true self, not letting those voices kind of overpower you or those opinions overpower you. But again, as I use a performer and has been a performer for a long time, it could also be feeling like you need to be performing all the time, right? Like feeling like you need to be the image of who you are as a performer and kind of be on all the time. And then seeing that kind of throughout like generations and stuff as new people step in to having music careers, specifically like women in music careers, because there is like a heavier expectation for them, right? Like there's more of this pressure to be very polished and not let any kind of like mistake or crack come through, because that will be like very heavily scrutinized and like leaned on as a way to push them down. So I think that that's also a really interesting thing to kind of like pull forward of this song feeling like an encouragement of like almost like IU speaking to herself of like, you're allowed to want things and to go after things and to have this like ambition and to actually like meet that goal and to go after it, and to not just like say, oh, I have dreams, but to actually like make it an actual plan and to go after it and have that ambition. But it also feels like she's talking to fans and also kind of like looking on to like the next group of people, because there are lots of people in the industry who look up to her and people who are like younger than her, saying like, you're also allowed to have those ambitions and those goals and to go after them, and kind of like have it like a wish list, be like a shopper where you can like put in your order or go to the cash with your purchase and you could get it right there, right? Like I think it's really interesting to have this comparison of shopper being both like the materialistic side, but then also comparing it to going after your dreams. I think that we always look at it as like this really difficult journey and this thing that you have to fight for, and sometimes you do, sometimes it's difficult. Like, it's not as easy as saying like, oh, I'm gonna have this, and then you get it right in that second. But I think comparing it to shopping or kind of like browsing and like putting together your wish list and being able to kind of cash in your hard work for those goals and ambitions is a really interesting kind of like analogy. I'm excited to see what the visuals end up being for this particular music video. I think there'll be some fun things for it. Love that line. Love the guitar coming through. Man, the vocals. We gotta go back for the vocal. That like drum coming through. I love that too. Ooh, I love that. I love the line that was make your own, like I was born to own, right? Like the two different kind of meanings of own. Also, they had the line that was, it's all useful to me, my victory, even your jealousy, like that one. Love that, of like, even though you see me as like greedy or overambitious or kind of not staying in my lane, that is still like useful to me. That is still kind of like propelling me forward in it, because sometimes we say like, oh, we have these lofty goals or these lofty ambitions. And I think this is part of where that idea of I don't deserve it to have it is that people look at us and go like, well, what do you mean you can do that? Like that's a little bit ridiculous, don't you think? Right? Like people kind of talk it down of like, okay, well, let's be realistic, right? I think that anyone who's had any kind of lofty ambition has had someone look at them like they're a little bit crazy and tell them that they need to be more realistic about their dreams or the ambitions. And like it might be labeled as greedy, it might be labeled as all of these kind of negative connotations of like wanting something better for ourselves or like wanting things, right? And then to say like, okay, even that is useful. Like you saying I can't do this, you being jealous of me for even like attempting it to have this or continuing to kind of up the ante on myself, that is also propelling me forward. I love that. And like comparing it with like victory too. And again, like this wonderful, almost like seesaw feeling in the production of like this lift off and then this like suspended moment in it, right? Like it's kind of this like pulling up and then having a moment to kind of like digest that propulsion, like that feeling of like uplift in a way that I think a lot of people don't. I mean, I think it's really easy to like have a goal and you meet it and then you immediately set the next goal and you meet it and it just kind of of like continues to go forward as like this endless cycle of kind of chasing numbers or possessions or things that don't really matter, when in reality you need to kind of sit with those victories. You need to sit with the fact that you've actually like met this ambition and look at it and let yourself like have that moment of, I did that, I got myself here. But I'm really excited to see what the music video is going to be like, the visuals with this particular concept. And so far with all of these songs, the visuals have like added so many other layers to how I'm looking at the song. But overall, love it. Love a synth, love that we got a little more of an upbeat feeling with this one as well, and something that feels like uplifting and victorious and encouraging as well. I briefly looked it up because I had a thought going to this music video, and I was kind of looking, and it does appear like this is the one that has DPR IAN in it. I think is how you pronounce his name. Clearly, I don't follow his music to know that. I kind of just know him peripherally as a person that exists. And I've probably heard some of the viral parts of his songs, and I just didn't know it was him. But I think I know what he looks like. I might be about to make a fool of myself, but that's okay. Also, this music video is longer, so I'm already like a little bit nervous. We've been doing a lot of storytelling in these music videos, and I just don't know if I'm like emotionally prepared. This better be fun.
There once was a shop.
Is that him speaking?
And it wasn't just any shop.
Marked?
It was in fact extraordinary.
Okay.
With even more extraordinary items that never seem to run out.
Is that like a little change in like
it was in
the
fact extraordinary. With even
lens?
more extraordinary items that never
Yeah,
seem
like
to
she
run
turned and it was like a little effect.
out. They say the items had powers
Okay.
that would only unlock to their rightful owners. So you might be wondering, who put those items there? Was it a god? A fairy? Or maybe a thief?
Okay,
The
ominous.
begins here.
We're going back in time. Different hairstyle. Lollipop still there. Interesting. We got a whole story arc going on. I love her. I love her being like, I'm wondering if like my computer is buffering or whatever as well, but her being like in between the two doors too, like framed between like two paths. Yeah, my computer's been weird, sorry. Interesting to have an auction too. Magic map? Like, isn't that him? He looks unimpressed. Why are we sneaking? Are you the thief in question? Are we looking at the... Are we the thief? We're looking for the magical items? Are we both the thieves? He seems to be wanting to buy it. Her eyes are changing too. Okay, interesting. Again, I like having her framed between the two doorways of like almost stuck between like two worlds. I like this concept of almost like magical items or whatever, especially since we're talking about like shopping, and I was already comparing that to like dreams, ambitions, goals, things like that. So something that isn't necessarily material, but kind of comparing it to the more like materialistic side, especially since that usually has kind of a negative connotation, right? Like we look at people who are like very materialistic and we mean that in a very like negative light, but instead saying like, well, what if you treat that as something like with ambitions or with goals, aspirations, and comparing that with like these magical items of like they'll only really work in the right hands, right? Of it's fine to have like goals and ambitions, but like they have to be matched to like the right people, the right kind of person who can embody that, right? Even just like idol culture and people who sing and perform on stage and stuff, like it is one thing to have a talent in music. It's another thing to be the kind of person who thrives in a performing area, right? Like there's a reason that there are certain people who are songwriters or composers or play musical instruments and aren't like vocalists or fronting a group or performing on stages. Just because they have a love of music doesn't mean that they have that same spark for like performing in general or like being the center of attention as a way of performing that music. So it has to be like that ambition has to be in the right hands. If it's in the wrong person's hands, or it's with the wrong person gets like the wrong opportunity and it doesn't mesh with who they are, then it's no longer like this magical thing for them. It's like a burden and a thing that they have to like deal with from this place of like anxiety and all of that. But so far I really like the dynamic between the two of them. It's like, it's really, I don't know, the fun kind of like acting between them. I also kind of like the contrast of like IU being a little more like bubbly, and she's like the lollipop, which has kind of like a youthful feeling, more of like a playful thing. And then DPR IAN seems to have like a little bit of a darker tone. I think he does, even like the little bit that I kind of know about him and his music, is he tends to have like a little bit of a darker lean to it. So I like having those two kind of like contrasting, but like then IU seems to be the one who's like being a thief. So I think it's funny to have like kind of this reverse of expectations, right? Like just because somebody looks a certain way, you perceive them a certain way, doesn't mean that you actually know what's going on. And I kind of like the idea of having IU with like this more bubbly, cutesy concept, and then she's actually the one that you should be worried about. Her eyes are changing, so I'm assuming she has some kind of like magic besides the map. Well, you didn't thieve very well. Ooh, that like throwing money as a distraction. I love that quick change. Different hairstyle, different clothes. Bit grungier. Are we friends? Are we gonna collaborate? Do we need to take the lollipop? Why are we offering that? Or are we threatening in some way? I guess we're stuck together now? I love all the confetti around her. I think it's such a cute visual. You're not gonna help? I also really, okay, I love the dynamic. I think that's really fun, like the way that they're acting off of each other. The contrast between the two. He seems put out, this whole thing. Like he was just vibing to his music. Auction got weird. He was like, nah, I'm just gonna leave. Hanging out in his car, vibing. And now he's part of something, you know? But I also love that she has all of those images, like she has the map and she can sense the or see these kind of magical items. She has the like, what can I think of it? I'm like telescope, but I'm like, that's not correct. The like looking glass piratey thing. She does have like a bit of a pirate energy between the map and like looking for treasure and thievery. But, you know, like she has all of these kind of items associated with her of seeking and having direction and like finding, exploring, right? And having that like in contrast to even just like her outfits, like having like the more fun kind of like outfit, magical outfits, the confetti and stuff. And then having DPR IAN's vibe be more like constricted, like muted colors, even like having the suit on earlier, things that feel more restricted and fitting into kind of societal expectations. Like if you saw someone walking around dressed in a similar outfit, it wouldn't necessarily like cue in that there's anything going on, where as compared to like IU's, right, where it is like leading more into something that you would see in like a music video, and that's something that isn't necessarily something that you would just like wear around. I mean, you could, I'm not judging you, you do you, but you know, I love that kind of contrast between the two of them, and her being very like, go with the flow and this is fine and I'm just going to, you know, take the opportunities that are there, see the way that I can kind of navigate through this, and him seeming like more put out about the whole situation as, you know, a little more like restricted and kind of like fitting in a bit. Like, just look at the way that she's like smiling at them. They're so cute. If I had to push a car, I'd be pretty put out. A special adventure, that's cute. Interesting to have people with these thick glasses, like framed glasses. Like they're seeing the world through a certain lens. Different outfit. We saw her in the other clips though. When he threw the confetti Betty with like the straightest face. But also, okay, I was thinking we have multiple people with the glasses. So again, like seeing the world through a certain lens, having like a certain perspective on things. But even there, when we had them like silhouetted, right, when they're riding the bikes, in that moment, I was talking before about like their outfits are more contrasting and kind of the way that they visually show themselves and the way they even like the silhouettes that they're having, like the way that they're kind of holding their body language is very contrasting between the two of them. But then the moment that we have them in silhouette and they're kind of more simplified, we see this kind of like unwinding of that, right? Like DPR IAN's body language shifting to being something more open and carefree as we transition, right? In that place where there's no one around and we as the audience can't judge them or make assumptions about them based on like visual representation because they're mostly in silhouette, is when some of that guardedness goes away. The map feels intimidating. I love that he's participating though. Why did we fall off the bed? See, they have glasses here, but very different, right? From like the thick-rimmed ones. Did someone come through? Sorry, because she had the lollipop before. We said like maybe a thief, and then now we have like the broken lollipop. So what does that mean? Maybe because I was saying before it's something like more like playful or like innocent. So like maybe it's kind of saying like leaving behind. I like, and maybe again like expectations. Like I see like a lollipop and I'm like thinking like, oh, like innocence, playfulness, stuff like that. But like maybe that's not what it is, because there was a point where she was like holding it at him and it was almost like in this threatening way. So, and given that we have magical items, maybe it could be threatening and I just don't know that, right? Like making assumptions about something based on its appearance and our own preconceptions about it. And then that's not actually what it is. And having that be broken at some point is like, you can no longer like have an opinion about who like IU's character is in this based on that particular prop. Maybe I like that we're getting like a little bit of behind the scenes. See, like the guards have the glasses too.
They say the items had powers.
Oh, be careful. Oh, are we is it rolling too far downhill? I love the like straight face he has though. Oh. Cute. Oh, I really like that. I love that we had like the brightness too and like fun, love it. And I love that at the end there we had like so many of these other people throughout kind of the music video in passing who were getting the things that they actually wanted and being happy and kind of having all of this like blast of like color. And they were all very like unique. Again, like I was saying before, the contrast in like outfits and like expectations and stuff like that. Like I feel like just looking, oh, I noticed that he like walked in and then I'm just going back. I'm like, isn't that him right there? Walking in, I didn't even notice him. I'm sure that someone who's like more of a fan and wouldn't be as distracted by how you would notice, but like, you know, still like more like muted colors, suits, very like, I was just kind of looking back at some of the people who were like there at the auction. You know, there are like pops of color, but it's still very much like pushes into the background. I mean, part of that is like because of like the aesthetic of the music video, like you want like certain people to be at the forefront as opposed to background people in it. But even just like the like more like muted coloring, and then you compare it to like later on where we have, you know, more like bright colors and more like exaggerated movements, and like the color palette is expanding and people are standing out more individually, you know, after they kind of like put aside expectations and like fitting into those expectations and letting other people maybe prescribe how you're supposed to represent yourself or what you're supposed to want, now that they're kind of going after the things that they actually wanted. Maybe it was really cute though. I love the dynamic between the two in this. I think that they had some like really adorable little like moments, and I like getting to see that. I really appreciated this. I think that this is like a really fun song. It is uplifting. I think that it plays off of a lot of interesting things, and I really like the imagery of like shopper and that being something that is seen through this negative light, and saying like, fine, you're allowed to see me that way. You're allowed to see me as greedy. You're allowed to like label me as someone who's materialistic because I know that I want this, this, and this, but I'm going to get to them. So I guess you're just gonna be jealous, right? Like I like having that energy of I'm just gonna be who I am. And I know what I want. I'm gonna go after it. I'm gonna accomplish it. And you can stay there and be upset about it, or you can figure out the things that you want and go after those instead. Like I love getting that, and I really like getting something that's a little more optimistic and happy, because the other two songs that I've checked out from this album so far have been a little bit on the darker side, even though I love the songs. But I like that we are still getting some of that like uplifting, fun synthy pop from IU as well. And really like the storytelling, the like rich storytelling that we get in her music videos as well. It's one of my favorite things. So even though I feel like maybe the other music videos were like a little more difficult to like pull the layers apart on in terms of like what we were talking about, I really like this music video as something that was more on like the fun side and got to lean into some of that playfulness as well. And I'm interested now to kind of see what the other songs are on this album and kind of pull together like a story thread throughout all of them, because I think so far it's very interesting to have something that is like this, which is about like figuring out what you want, going after it, kind of putting together your wish list, and like not letting other people bring you down or like decide what you get to want or what you should be allowed to go after, and then going with shush as kind of this like generational thing. And I mean, there were it was kind of like my interpretation, and I had lots of conversations with people in the comments about that music video, so it's a little bit different, but like again, being this like representation of different generations and passing on kind of knowledge and sticking by each other and that kind of thing. And then obviously like love wins all being a lot, but also like even just like that concept of love mattering and taking care of each other and leaning on each other and being supportive of each other seems to be something that is kind of coming throughout this album so far, and having this be an encouragement of like even to the people who are jealous of her saying like, okay, I still have my victory, and like you should also go after the things that you want, and it's almost in this vein of like, why are you spending so much time being upset with me and jealous of me for what I'm accomplishing instead of spending that time and energy going off and accomplishing the things that you want, right? That's such a better use of your time than like standing around and judging other people for what they're doing. So I really like that. I have just like a big smile on my face, which is great, because I'm still, again, emotionally distraught over Love Wins All. I don't know if I'll ever recover. I think that I'm just gonna be emotionally spent about that particular song, but I hope you enjoyed watching that along with you. You can click this place to go see my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so the next time I post an IU reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye.